As I retired my ZXR400 and I bought a new RC390 that I yet need to repair, one of the things that I wanted to do is to discuss the 400cc bikes and especially review this beauty here. Everyone says that 400cc bikes are slow, and this bike here is to prove you wrong. This is a 2002 Kawasaki ZXR400, and let's talk about what you get with this little machine. First of all, it is an inline-4 with 62 to 65 brake horsepower, all from the 398cc, which basically meant you were the coolest kid in the car park. In 2002. The bike was discontinued in 2003 because they were getting ready to launch the new version, which is the ZX400. That's why I like to call mine a garage queen. And it's not because it's delicate, no, it's a very robust mechanical work. But finding parts for it is like archaeological research. I've been looking for a ZXR engine for 2 months now, and I've scraped Facebook Marketplace, eBay. There is no engine that is running for sale in the UK. So the only thing that I would have left is either look for Europe or get one that is not working, or get the 600 and put it in the 400. But we'll see, that is another video. Now, one of the perks with this bike is that everything is analog, so it has no computer. If something is wrong with it, you actually need to know what is wrong, which is not great because I have been rejected by no less than 3 mechanics. One of them was actually funny. That was back in the summer. The bike was overheating, so I called a mechanic and they're like, "Oh, what bike do you have?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's a ZXR400. It's an old one, a 2002. It's like, "No problem, just get it over and I'll look at it to see why it overheats and I'll try to diagnose it." I pull up in his garage. He looks at it and he's like, "No." I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" He's like, "No, I'm not touching that bike. It has carburetors. Go somewhere else." So yeah, no computer, and you need to find a good mechanic to work on it. Visually, the bike looks fantastic. The Ram air style intake gives this bike a proper 90s look. Like, slightly aggressive, slightly unnecessary, but still very, very cool. Now, besides the analog speedometer and RPM, don't know when you're gonna run out of fuel. How you actually feel it is the bike is gonna start to tell you. You need to switch the reserve, which is on this side here, and just pray there is a gas station next to you. One trick that I use is at the speedometer, you have a trip that I would always reset when I refill. And roughly it takes around 110 miles to go completely empty. One of its signature things are the half decent mirrors where you can see half of the things on the road, because the other half is just your elbows. Size-wise, this ZXR400 is actually bigger than the modern 400s, because bikes in the 90s, because this is a 90s model, even though it's a 2002, were built slightly differently, where they were quite chunky. It actually reminds me of my ZXR, which I use for track. Although the seat is low, so for a shorter rider, this bike is great. Now, cold starts are something that I really want to talk about, because this bike is very special. As in, because it has carburetors, it's really hard to start this bike, especially if it's winter. And what this bike has built in, and you won't really see it in any new and modern bikes, is a choke. Now, the choke that is here will increase the RPM of the bike, and you will give a constant gas intake for it to warm up faster. Alternatively, you can't choose not to use the choke. What you need to do is rev pump the bike, which is not something that I would necessarily recommend, especially if you have to go to work at 8 a.m. every morning and you live in a block of flats. Trust me. Now, we talked about the specs of the bikes and how it looks. Let's also talk about how it rides. ZXR400. Tiny engine, ridiculous red line, and zero comfort. This is where the bike gets interesting, because you will notice when you ride it that this is a tiny rocket, because allegedly the top speed is 140 miles an hour. And with the passenger, you might be looking at something like 110 miles, which is impressive for a 400. The engine with the red line at 14,500 RPM, and I'll be completely honest with you, it doesn't do anything under 6,000. So the optimal range is 7 to 8,000 RPM to actually feel the bike. And if you get to 10k, it's nice. You will make a lot of progress with this. Now, handling is another plus for this bike, because this is where it really shines. It's extremely precise once you get the speed. On smooth roads and twisty roads, it would feel like a scalpel, because every small input will translate into movement. I also have the Diablo Supercorsa tires, which are very track focused road tires, so this pairing will give you amazing feedback when the tires are warmed up. The downside of this is that it takes a while to warm up the Diablo Supercorsas, especially in winter or in rainy conditions, trust me. One more thing about this is that the suspension, being a super sports of the 90s, even though someone would consider it more like a sports tourer, I won't say who, the suspension is very, very firm, so they don't compress much, and it will make the bike very precise, but also horrible in London, where you have all the speed bumps. Now, the last bit is comfort, which was clearly not included in the design of this bike in the 90s. But no one buys a 90s sports bike for comfort anyway. You buy it because it makes you look really cool. Now, one interesting thing that I felt with this bike is that it doesn't really give you the comfort of getting off your seat. With my ZXR, I feel much more comfortable to try to get off my seat and lean the bike. Now, with this one, it just doesn't give me that feeling. I'm really interested to see if anyone else noticed that. In a strange way, the bike almost teaches you the riding style of the era. And let me know if anyone noticed. I almost fell. And honestly, this is part of its charm. I actually fell. Anyways, now I can finally say that I've properly retired this bike. I probably will never see it again unless I become a really big YouTuber and I'm deciding to repair it from scratch and I know how to work on engines. But for now, I'm gonna try and work on my RC390 by myself and then get it on the road. Thanks for watching. Bye!